Every year I do this tradition where I compare two of the biggest smartphone updates from both Apple and Google, and this year we got iOS 18 versus Android 15. I'll discuss all the newest features introduced by each OS and highlight the advantages of each. And by the way, I made sure to go through a really deep analysis, so a quick thumbs up would be highly appreciated and motivate me to keep creating these type of comparisons. Let's start by talking about the new features that each OS may have borrowed from the other. As some of you may know, this time around Apple is the bigger borrower here. With iOS 18, many customization improvements are quite similar to what Android has been offering for years. For instance, icons can now be freely moved and placed anywhere on the home screen, something that's been available on Android since the beginning. Additionally, iOS now allows you to darken the widgets and icons when switching to the dark theme, another feature that Android has had for a while. Finally, iOS 18 can now have the icons and widgets match the colors of your wallpaper, or even change the tint color to anything else only when the icons are darkened. Android has been doing this since 2021, and I think it looks much better. Plus, they can even match the color palette even when the light theme is enabled. Outside of the home screen, Apple copied over a few other customization options. Like in the lock screen, they now let you change the two controls at the bottom to any other action. On Android, you've been able to do this for years. However, iOS does provide a ton more controls to choose from, which is nice, so I'll give them that. Not to mention that all these controls are also available to use throughout other parts of the OS, including when you're remapping the action button or modifying the control center. On that note, I would even go as far as to say that I prefer the control center on iOS 18 than the one on Android. Don't get me wrong, the quick settings can be just as powerful on Android, especially if you use some third-party apps, but the control center on iOS just looks better, makes each control easier to recognize since they don't all have the same shape, and they're way easier to customize. For example, you can resize any control, which is very handy if you want to enlarge the ones that stand out the most to you or are more important to you. Plus, I love that some icons have different colors, so you can find them a lot more quickly. And when you add a control, you can search for the ones you like to use instead of needing to scroll through a large list. On Android, every tile is the same size, color, and shape. And when you want to add a tile, good luck, because you'll need to go through a giant list with no search bar or any tile being in alphabetical order. And as if that wasn't enough, you'll then need to long press the tile that you want to use and literally drag it all the way to the top. Don't let go either, because you'll need to start all over again. It's a whole mission. Some phones like Samsung, Oppo, or OnePlus do make it easier to manage, but it's still not as good as iOS. Plus, the fact that they let you swipe to other panels and include a page with all your smart home controls completely pushed me over the edge. It's so much more efficient to access than finding a similar looking tile on Android. Another new iOS 18 feature that Android has had first is a game mode, and Apple made theirs pretty bare bones. It currently just minimizes the background activity and improves latency when using wireless connected devices like AirPods or controllers. That's it. They have a long way to go to catch up with Android's gaming mode. iMessage also introduced some features that most of its messaging competitors already have, like the ability to react to a message with any emoji or sticker, scheduling messages to send later, text formatting, and finally supporting RCS messaging, so we Android users can finally send our iPhone buddies full HD videos, see typing indicators, read receipts, and have our conversations be end-to-end encrypted. The only annoying part is that our bubbles will still be green. Thanks, Apple. They also brought some unique features of their own that most messengers don't have, like text effects, which basically lets you add fun little animations to specific words within your message. It's pretty clever because it makes it easier to express yourself. They're also supporting sending messages via satellite, which is perfect if you're wanting to communicate with others while you're off the grid. On Android, it's been confirmed by Android Authority that Google is also working on satellite communication. But as of now, there's no confirmed date on when this feature is actually going to be released, and it seems that T-Mobile is currently the only carrier to be supporting satellite messaging. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. This next one was surprising. Both softwares brought considerable improvements to their Photos app. iOS 18 had more significant changes than Android 15. However, each still made their app better to use. On the iPhone side, the Photos app received a massive redesign with the photo grid pushed upward and the collections down below. You can even scroll on the grid to swipe through various collections and memories. And they even made it easier to revisit certain days and reflect on certain past memories. Plus, they're even planning on throwing in some AI, or as Apple calls it, Apple Intelligence. They gotta rename everything. When editing a photo, there's now a new cleanup tool that lets you remove any unwanted person from the background of your shot. You can now use natural language when searching to find really specific things within your pictures or videos. Both of those two were already included in Google Photos, by the way. And lastly, there's this new AI feature called Memory Movie, which lets you create a video that compiles all of your past shots based on a description you've written. Plus, it'll even use a song from Apple Music to play in the background and even have it match the theme of the video. Now, that's something that I wish Google Photos had. When we switch to Android, the changes aren't as dramatic. But Google did show off a new AI Gemini feature called Ask Photos, which drastically improves the search. On stage, Google explained how you can now ask Google Photos specific questions like your license plate number or any family milestone so that you can now look back on your past much more easily. The search within Google Photos was already top of the line, but it's pretty exciting to see that it gets even better. The Mail app on iOS also had significant improvements, with some features even being extremely similar to those found within Google's email apps. The first is the new categorization found within Apple Mail. It now organizes your emails into different categories called transactions, updates, and promotions. As most of you know, Gmail has very similar categorizations, with some even having the same names. Apple's Mail app also showed off a new digest view, which basically groups all the emails you receive from a business into a single page so that you can manage them a lot easier. This is very similar to Inbox by Gmail's bundles functionality. Plus, there are also some new AI features coming to Apple's Mail app, which Google also showed off at their I/O event. The first is that emails can be summarized with a new summarize button at the top of an email thread. Gmail will be able to do the same. But something that is new on iOS is that if you're responding to an email, you'll now be able to use Smart Reply, which basically provides suggestions for your response and then asks you even more questions based on the email's context to draft an accurate response of what you want to say. That one is super cool and something that I wish Gmail had. This next feature was released by both companies at the same time, and that is the ability to lock and hide apps. Granted, some Androids like Samsung or OnePlus have let you hide and lock apps for a while, but for native Android, this is a first. Also, the process for hiding apps is different. For example, on Apple, you can lock an app behind a passcode or biometric unlocking method by simply long pressing the icon on the home screen and then selecting Require Face ID. Then you can also hide the app by selecting the second option. From there, the app will be hidden within the app library under a new folder called Hidden. On the other hand, with Android 15, there is a new hidden space at the bottom of the app drawer called Private Space. And unlike Apple's hidden folder, Google has made this into a separate encrypted space that doesn't even communicate with your phone's primary storage. So you can literally download a whole new set of apps, even if they're duplicates, and log into completely different accounts. You can take pictures, download files, browse websites, and all this data will only appear within this private space. Pretty useful. So those are all the major features that Apple has borrowed from Android. But guess what? Google has also borrowed some features, and there may not be as many, but they're still worth mentioning. For example, on iOS, when you swipe to go back, most apps and menus give you a sneak peek of the previous page. It's a really nice feature that iPhones have had for years, and Google decided to bring something similar to Android, calling it predictive back gestures. The animation is a bit more bouncier than what Apple provides and doesn't show as much of the previous page, but it still works just fine. It first appeared in Android 14, but wasn't fully enabled by default until the Android 15 Beta 2 release. It works really well too. However, the only apps that currently support it are the ones made by Google and some system settings, so it'll take a while for more apps to adopt this new feature. iOS was also the first to support the archiving of apps under a setting called Offload Unused Apps, meaning that if an app was rarely used, then it would be automatically removed, but still keep all of its documents and data so that if you do decide to bring it back in the future, then it'll still have all of its information. The only downside is that iOS would be the one that decides what apps get archived. You can't manually force an app to be archived. And Android was the same way for a while too, but now with Android 15, they allow you to archive apps manually in their app info page. So even though Apple did it first, Android did manage to give us better control. And even though third-party apps on Android and iOS already allowed you to do this next feature, iOS was technically the first to provide built-in support for letting you use the iPhone as a webcam on your desktop. More specifically, a Mac. Google then brought this same built-in webcam support to native Android just last year, and unlike Apple, they've made it work on every desktop operating system. The only problem is that the resolution sucked, even with the rear cameras. iPhones provided way better quality. But now, Android 15 finally allows you to increase the resolution with a brand new HQ button in the bottom corner. So it's a massive win for anyone who does a lot of virtual meetings and has a broken webcam. Another small but interesting change is the improved clarity regarding system storage usage. You can now easily see how much space the Android OS occupies and how much system data is being used up as well, such as the cache and other temporary files. It's very similar to how iOS displays their system storage information. And that's it for all the major new features that Android 15 may have borrowed from iOS. I told you there weren't that many. Now, even though these updates make our phones smarter and more efficient, they don't help us escape the negativity that often comes with social media and browsing the web. We've all been there. Sometimes you just need to put down your phone and talk to a friend or a therapist to lift your spirits and recharge your mental health. If you find yourself in that situation and need someone to talk to, I recommend trying BetterHelp, the sponsor of this video. BetterHelp offers online therapy at an affordable cost, all from the comfort of your home. I've used therapy myself to improve my communication skills, reduce social anxiety, and boost my confidence. In the past, social media really impacted my self-esteem and confidence levels, especially when interacting with others. Talking to a therapist helped me overcome those challenges and gave me useful tools to manage my mental insecurities. If you're facing difficulties, BetterHelp can support you. Just answer a few questions on their site or app, and they'll quickly match you with a suitable therapist. You can reach out through messaging, phone calls, or video chats, whatever is convenient for you. And the best part is if your therapist isn't a good fit, you can easily switch to another one at no additional cost. So if you're struggling, why not give online therapy with BetterHelp a try? Use my link betterhelp.com/howtomen or choose HowToMen at sign up to get 10% off your first month. Trust me, investing in your mental health is one of the best decisions you can make. One major change though that both softwares had to adopt due to industry movements was improving their artificial intelligence, or AI. And let's be real, they really pushed these new AI features onto us. Some more than others. Google. Yeah, but it's a step in the right direction. Each of their AIs does the basics like improving your writing, letting you summarize or ask questions about a specific file, generate images, and make their assistants more natural to talk to. Nothing out of the ordinary there. However, I've got to say, Apple did show off other AI features that did seem more practical for everyday use and integrated into their OS a lot more seamlessly than Google's AI Gemini. For example, their notifications now use AI to prioritize your most important ones, putting them at the top. Plus, they summarize them, which is super handy for when you want to quickly catch up on those busy group chats. On the Android side, notifications aren't as sophisticated. They don't use AI to prioritize or summarize notifications or even figure out which ones are more important than others. So iOS definitely has the advantage there. Apple also made its image generation tool a lot more practical and easily accessible than how Google did theirs. Sure, you can generate regular images on both, but Apple introduced some standout features that I think most people will use a lot more regularly. One is Genmoji, where you can create new emojis that no one else has ever seen before. You just type out whatever new emoji you like to create, and it'll generate your idea on the spot. You can even create an emoji that looks just like someone you know. From there, these can be used as stickers, reactions, or even be added in line with your messages. I can already see so many of my friends using this. There's also something called Image Wand, which just by drawing a circle around a sketch or any empty space within the Notes app, it'll create a new picture based on the surrounding notes or the sketch you drew. I wish I had this when I was in school, because this would be super handy for those times when I'm studying for a big exam and I need to visualize my notes to remember them a lot better. And in general, Apple showed off a plethora of mind-blowing use cases with its AI. For instance, they showed off how Siri can pull up flight details from an email that was shared. Then after that, it can pull up your lunch plans from a simple text message that was sent a few days ago as well. And then after that, it'll pull up the time it'll take to get to that restaurant without ever needing to close Siri or open any apps. That's extremely useful. Additionally, Siri can link apps together to easily transfer a photo to another app or add a meeting summary to an email you're drafting. If you're filling out a form, it can also find a photo of your driver's license, extract the ID number, and plug it in. The list goes on and on. Google's Gemini currently doesn't do most of those things, including finding plans from a text message or being able to move a file from one app to another. But it lets you do other useful things, like letting you ask questions about a long video you're too lazy to watch, having it solve some math problems, letting you know in real time if a phone call is a scam, or even letting you generate an image and putting it into a message you drafted. But outside of these tools, I do still think iOS 18 provides more practical AI features. Plus, for that cherry on top, Apple teamed up with OpenAI to bring Chat 4.0 into their ecosystem. This means that Siri can now handle even broader world knowledge questions, so that literally did it for me. The only Gemini feature that I think is a game changer though, and I'm super excited about, is Project Astra. In this feature, you can use your phone's camera to let Gemini see what you're pointing at and ask it any question about that item. That'll be super useful in the future. Anyway, don't get your hopes down if you're on Android, because even though Apple did somehow manage to bring a better AI integration to iOS, Google still managed to improve plenty of Android features that Apple has yet to bring. The first is split screen mode. It's been further improved, with it now being able to save app pairs so that you can quickly open them later. To do this, you simply open the Recents page, tap on the icons, select Save App Pair, and boom, that dual icon will appear on your desktop. I'm sure if you're big on multitasking, you're going to absolutely love this, and unfortunately, iPhones have yet to bring anything similar to split screen. iPads are the only handheld Apple device that lets you open these apps simultaneously, but that's it. Android 15 also redesigned its expandable volume panel, making the sliders thicker and including more sound-related buttons to make them more easily accessible. iOS has yet to include an expandable volume panel. Androids have also always allowed you to change most of the default apps like the phone, browser, assistant, messenger, and more to any other third-party alternative you download from the App Store. And now with Android 15, you get one more option, the wallet. You can change it to whatever you like. On the other hand, iOS still doesn't allow you to change most of their default apps. Both softwares also allow you to check your phone's battery health, although on Android you currently need to use a third-party app to access this information. But on top of that, Android 15 now also lets you check the health of your storage chip. Mishal Rahman discovered this and showed us how to do it. You just need to download an app called Activity Launcher from the Play Store, scroll until you see Device Diagnostics, then tap on Main Activity, launch the activity, then tap on Component Health and Storage Status. Plus, within this same Component Health page, you can take a look at your battery health too. Androids have also had a desktop mode for a while, where you can plug it into a monitor with a USB-C to HDMI cable and have an entirely new desktop interface where you can open and run multiple apps in floating windows. And now with Android 15, it's been further improved. Once again, Mishal from Android Authority managed to get it working, and in his screen recording that he shared, you can see a few new things, like a new bar at the top, which lets you quickly transform a window. The title bars look a lot cleaner, and you can easily resize and organize the windows by dragging them to the edge of the screen. It's nowhere near as good as Samsung DeX, but it's still way better than iOS, because they don't even have a mobile desktop experience to begin with. Android 15 also brought a ton of vibration improvements. Firstly, there's a new universal setting that lets you disable haptic feedback for all keyboard apps at once, regardless of which one you're using. This is particularly useful if you're using a third-party keyboard app that doesn't let you turn off touch vibrations. Unfortunately, iOS lacks a similar universal setting, but it does offer the option to disable vibrations on the default iOS keyboard. Google also introduced adaptive vibration, which automatically adjusts the vibration intensity based on your environment. So if you're in a loud place like a concert, the vibration will be much more violent. Whereas if you're in a quiet setting like a library, it'll be very subtle. It can do this by using your phone's microphone and other sensors to determine the sound levels around you. iOS still doesn't have anything like this, but to be honest, this feature does raise more privacy concerns than it might be worth. Lastly, Android 15 finally allows you to set different vibration styles for their incoming notifications. That way you can theoretically know what type of notification you receive based on the vibration pattern. On iOS, you can create custom vibration patterns for various system alerts, such as incoming calls, text messages, etc. But third-party apps can't set custom vibrations on their own. If we flip the script, iOS 18 also brought new features that Android doesn't have, or if they do have them, iPhones just do it better. One standout feature is in their Maps app, which now allows you to explore popular hikes filtered by length, time, elevation, and more. You can even create and save custom hiking routes for easier access in the future. Google Maps, on the other hand, is more accurate in identifying hiking trails, because Apple Maps tends to also show you parks when you search for nearby trails. But I still like how Apple Maps excels in providing detailed information about specific hiking trails, including the length and elevation. Apple also made it easier to let you pay others right in front of you. You just put your iPhones together and they'll quickly exchange Apple Cash. It's a super efficient way to split the bill or anything money related. On top of that, Apple Wallet lets you redeem rewards and access installments from your bank and card provider. And as if that wasn't enough, event tickets now show you helpful info about the venue and have smart recommendations from some Apple apps like the weather. Super fantastic features that I wish Google Wallet had. iPhone users have also been able to use a relatively new app that was just introduced last year called Journal. It's a fantastic new way to quickly jot down anything on your mind and let it all out. Plus, it also uses AI to tie in your photos, videos, location, podcasts, music, and more within your writings to help you express your feelings better. And now with iOS 18, you can also log your state of mind and help you keep track of your goals with an insights view that shows you how long you've journaled, the number of words you've written, and more. It's a fantastic way to stay on top of your mental health, along with BetterHelp too. On Android, there's no dedicated journaling app, but of course you can just download one off the Play Store. iOS also added better control over certain permissions. Like for the contacts permission, you can choose which contacts an app can see instead of letting it access everyone on your phone. It's similar to how you can limit an app from accessing your photo library. On Android, the contact permission is still just allow or deny. Anyway, that's every significant new feature found within Android 15 and iOS 18. If I had to choose which is the better software update, I'd have to say it's a tie. Apple provided a slightly better AI experience with more quality of life improvements, while Google improved a plethora of its own features that iOS still doesn't have, like split screen, expanded volume panel, changing the default apps, desktop mode, and more. Plus, outside of Apple Intelligence, most of the new changes found within iOS 18 are just straight borrows from the Android OS. But that's just my opinion though, yours can be different and that's okay. Just let me know which OS you think did it better this time around. Also, tap this video right here to watch my last comparison of iOS 17 and Android 14. That was also a wonderfully detailed comparison as well. Or if you'd like to get a more in-depth review at Android 15, tap this video right here. Thanks for sticking to the end, drop a thumbs up if you enjoyed this comparison, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Kapow!